Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back, relax. Let's chat a little bit about what is going on up in the sky above, up in the stars above for the weekend. Hello, everybody, and I'm glad to be with you this morning. Here we are sitting in the close proximity to the full moon. I decided I would be out in space today. It looked like a good place to be. And I may have to change the background if it looks like I can't share my screen, but I might be able to share my screen. And the reason I would want to share my screen is I have so much to talk about this morning, as there seems to be a lot of things subtle and overt that are going on astrologically, but also in our human design that I want to make sure that everybody is aware of. So check in real quick and say good morning. Hello, Pauline and Asa. Good to see you out there. Thank you, Asa, for being here behind the scenes to help me get all of these things done in the morning and for getting all of my graphics and so forth out. You do such a great job, and I am so appreciative of the effort that you put in. So here we are today. We have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday ahead of us. The big news, of course, for the weekend is the full moon, and literally it takes up all the space for the weekend. There's really no other major transits that are occurring, but the energy of the full moon is pretty profound. And it's something that we want to be really aware of. And as well, when we look at what's going on in the Pleiadian calendar at this time, as well as what's going on with Venus and the sun at this time, and if we take a look at human design and what's going on at this time, there are these convergences, if you will, of energies that are coming together that are about to rock our world, or at least our personal worlds. So these are personal things that I'm talking about. But before I get totally into the energy of the day and the weekend, I had the weirdest dream. And this morning, like very early, like just before maybe waking up at 6. And in the dream, I don't know what was going on. I don't know who I was with. And yet this date flashes on like a screen in front of me, and the date was 3/14/19, so March 14th, 2019. And then right behind that was the name Uranus. So I wake up and I'm like, 3/14/19, what was that all about? Well, that happened to be the day, or one of the early days, where Uranus was at 0 degrees 21 minutes of Taurus, where it is now. And I don't have any clue as to what the importance of that date was, but whoever it was that was rocking my world in my dreams was making sure that I would come back from sleep and remember that date and that planet. So I even went to a website that I just Googled important events 3/14/19, and it was interesting to see some of the commonalities of things that were going on then that we're still grappling with now. And so that part was interesting, but nothing spelled like earth shaking, pay attention to this, Janet, or anything like that. So my guess is that over time, and maybe even with your help, if you guys have any insight as to why that date and that planet in particular would jump out, although I could say that for sure right now, Uranus is playing a pretty big part, a big role in all of the astrology that we are working with, because of just the placement of Saturn in a square to Uranus, where we're still grappling with this old and the new, right? And how do we move forward without leaving everything we cherish behind, but also at light enough that we can embrace something new for our futures. So I have a feeling that if I at some point really sit down, maybe in meditation, and work with this, I may come up with what it was that the dream was trying to tell me about. But that was the date, and that was the planet, those two, with some, very profound, like, light in the dream, putting me in that direction. So I'll have to keep you posted on that. Now, today, the moon is in Virgo, one of my favorite placements since my own moon is in Virgo. And in fact, this morning when I pulled the chart, the moon was at 5 degrees, 55 minutes of Virgo, 555, change. So I looked at that and went, wow, that's interesting. I mean, what were the odds of that? Especially after I see all kinds of 111, 1111s lately out there. So it makes me think there is something new. There is some kind of change afoot, and that we are on the cusp of something. That's the feeling I get, like we're at the mm, precipice of something, and we get to choose whether we're going to dive in, jump in, and embrace what's happening, or whether we're going to backpedal, staying in fear and not embracing the change. So it seems like we have a choice point, perhaps, in Greg Braden's words, that is before us. And maybe this full moon and this weekend are about it. That and the fact that Uranus was showing up powerfully in that dream for me tells us the nature of it. It's an awakening, right? A revolution, a rebellion, if you will, where we are having to temper our contrarian natures in order to become more aware of the forward path. So lots of fun things to think about here. Let's go back to the moon in Virgo. Today it is trine Uranus. So it's in a smooth flow of the back and forth energies between the two planets. But the moon in Virgo is also squaring Mars today. So there is the potential for some conflict, whether that's inner conflict or whether that comes up in the outer world, that remains to be seen. But let's take a look at what things that we can be interested in for Virgo energy. Virgo rules the physical body, right? The health of our physical body, not the body itself. That's Aries territory. But the physical health of your body is ruled by Virgo. And that includes diet and exercise and healthy habits and routines that support your health. And as well, healers and the process of healing is also part of the Virgo experience. So all of your healers, your alternative healers, your doctors, nurses, um, all of the health professions are engaged at a Virgo level in astrology. And Virgo also rules the work that we do, the job that you have, the not the career. So my career is that of an astrologer, but it would be more of the things that I do, pulling charts and doing interpretations and talking to people about astrology and all of those types of things. That's Virgo territory, the actual work that you do within the confines of a career. And that includes your coworkers. Who do you work with? Who are you? Who is your if you're the boss, let's say, who are your employees? Or if you are a self-employed person, who are the people that you work with in your day-to-day? And also the projects that you might be working on as related to the work that you do. Virgo, as you know, is also a sign about efficiency, and it is about organization, seeing the details, planning. It is very organized energy, and or it wants to be organized. It can be a little bit perfectionistic, right? There's this desire to see things perfected. There is a desire for processing of things in order to get them to their best, putting their best foot forward. And that might be processing your emotions. That might be processing, maybe in the day-to-day things, you're processing of things that have happened, or you're processing actual like paperwork to get it sent somewhere, all those types of things that we do. And of course, there's a need for synthesis with Virgo, and there in being organized and the desire for perfection and all of the processing. What they're doing is bringing order out of chaos, right? So if you have a chaotic environment, it's the Virgos or Virgo moon, Virgo, prominent in the chart. Those are the people that are going to be able to help you bring things into order. Now, Virgo in relationship to the ruler of being the ruler of the sixth house, um, also has a connection to how we share of ourselves, or the path of service that we each have. So in terms of Virgo, how are you sharing your gifts? What are your gifts and your talents? And your path of service to the world is in the sharing of yourself, your time, your love, your attention, but also sharing of your gifts and your talents, whatever those might be, and doing so in a conscientious way. That's Virgo energy as well. And of course, when we think of Virgo, we think of the ability to discern or to be discerning, using critical thinking skills, being able to analyze, to focus our energies in some way, focus our minds. Remember, the ruler here, the ruling planet of Virgo is Mercury. So there's a connection to mind and speaking, being orderly, being discerning, and to be able to use our powers of comparing and contrasting. It sounds very Ajna-like, doesn't it? If you've ever heard me talk about the Ajna, the second center down in human design, it is the center that we think of as the mind. So all of the mind's functions go through the Ajna, but that the Ajna has a lot of resemblance to Virgo energy as well. Now, in the body, Virgo rules the bowels, the intestines, the whole processes of digestion and assimilation of nutrients into the body, and it rules the solar plexus. So, our emotions and digestion linked, interestingly enough. And I believe science is actually beginning to show us how that link actually works from the more scientific end instead of the more spiritual or metaphysical, that we've always known that there was a connection between how we felt and the digestion process, or the gut, mind, heart connection. And we've suspected that all along, and now science is beginning to show us that. So in Virgo, the things that we are taking in to our body, food, water, light, energies from, the environment, are all in a process of digestion and assimilation. And so it's hard to just pin that just on food, because there are other things all the time that we are taking in, right? We're taking in the energy of one another. We're taking in thoughts and opinions. We're taking in information and ideas and inspiration, as well as food and water. So all of those things that we take in run through a filter in Virgo. And really, this is across that Virgo and Pisces axis. And Pisces axis sometimes brings in the toxins, right? So the toxins are having to move through a purifying energy in Virgo. So we have purification of ourselves going on as well when the moon is in Virgo. Now, we always have the more negative side and the more positive side of these energies. So what we're aiming for, of course, is neutral, but understanding that there's a full spectrum of ways in which the energies can be expressed out there. And the excessive side of Virgo is excessive perfectionism, right? That nitpickiness, worry, criticism, blame, and judgment of yourself, but of others as well, and workaholic tendencies, all work and no play. But the high side is that if you are in the process of working, then it is a time where you can get a lot done, and that you can see the benefits of having a plan, being organized, being more practical in the way that you approach doing the work that you need to do, or a project that you're working on. All right, so that's our moon today. And of course, the next sign after Virgo is Libra, and that is where our full moon is going to be. So let me just say good morning to more people as they're checking in. Good morning, Debbie Tibbetts-Tumiel. Great minds. She and I are always on the same wavelength. It's kind of funny. J-Lo, Grand Rising, and Melanie, Mimi. That's funny. Good morning to you. Sometimes it says Mimi, but this morning it says your name is Melanie, which I know is your name, but we're used to calling you Mimi. So good morning to you, Mimi, and thank you. I love that background too. It makes me feel like I'm in outer space. J-Lo says, weird, I see 314, 143, or 341. So that's those are interesting numbers to be sure. Of course, the 14th is the beginning of the Ides of March. I don't remember anything of specifically happening March 14th of 2019, but I don't know. I don't know. Corey, good morning. Christine Buckingham, good morning. Jennifer Peachy, hello to you. J-Lo, they finally are catching up. I'm not sure who's catching up, but I missed something, I think. Kamal, good morning. Hope you're having a lovely day as well. Amanda J, hello to you. And I love the sparkly hearts. And I love all the emojis. I'm an emoji person. If you've ever gotten an email from me, you know that I put emojis and my my lovely, I forgot what those called, Bitmojis. I love those. So I love to see them all. Augustina, good morning to you as well. Looks like we have the gang with us this morning, and I'm sure there are others out there listening. So please do me a favor. If you're watching this video this morning, please hit the thumbs up button if you like the video. Consider sharing it with your friends or family members who might be interested in what we're talking about here. And for sure, if you haven't yet done so, please hit the subscribe button. And I haven't looked at my subscribers lately. We're at 676. Well, I'm getting there slowly. Since I lost my focus, I changed my focus from subscribers to just content. But I got to remember, of course, that that's part of this game as well. Oh, Asa, amazing. It's the day of Pi, 314. Pi. I might have to consider what that means too. So Pi. Somebody quickly do the numerology for me for 3/14/2019. I don't want to stretch my brain that hard this morning because it would be funny to see what that might be. Let's take a look before we go into the full moon. Let's take a look at what some of the other I wouldn't say more interesting, but some of the other interesting things are that we can talk about today in terms of astrology. And probably one of the biggest things is yesterday where the sun and Venus came together in a conjunction. And I should say Venus came into a conjunction with the sun, as she's the faster moving body. So typically we put the faster moving body first because that one is usually the one that's running into the conjunction, coming into the conjunction, not necessarily running into the conjunction. So yesterday we had the conjunction and we had the change of the into the Aries point, moving out of the Gemini point before, and now we're into the Aries point. Then today we move into a Venus phase change. So Venus, going through all of the different phases that she moves through, has now moved into the transmutation phase. She is here in this phase for 47 days. And here is where she begins to emerge out of the glare of the sun into the evening sky. So she'll become the evening star. So remember, right now, you cannot see Venus, right? She's almost directly behind the sun, as yesterday was their conjunction. This is called a superior conjunction, by the way, when a planet is behind the sun from the perspective of Earth. That's called a superior conjunction. And when the planet comes between the sun and Earth from our perspective here, it is called an inferior conjunction. So if we look at how that affects us in terms of what's going on our planet, when a planet is behind the sun, we are sort of more in the dark, if you will. It's harder for us to pick up what Venus is working on. She's working more on the inner planes, perhaps, transmuting us from the inside out. When she's in front of the sun, she's sort of blocking the sun. So it's easier for us to pick up the energy of Venus. And so when she's in her morning star phase, we see it more as a societal change, perhaps something that we can see more directly or experience more directly. And when she's behind the sun, these are changes going on the inside. So changes behind the scenes that we aren't readily seeing, but that we can connect to from our inner world, from our intuition. So she begins now this process of moving out from the shadow of the sun, or the glare of the sun, really not the shadow, the glare of the sun. And over time, over these next 47 days, she'll peek out from behind the sun, and we'll first get to see her toward the end of April as the evening star. Now, then that means she's beginning her move from the furthest away from Earth to the closer points to Earth. So she's moving closer into us, bringing into us new energies as she begins that process of transmutation. Now, literally, when I was going back and looking at all the different things written about Venus at this point in her cycle, and the main words that stuck out to me is that this part of the cycle ends isolation, and we personally are meant to open up to the forces of change and transmutation. So ending isolation, what else does that sound like, right? Moving us into more of our mainstream lives again after having had this year-long process of COVID kind of keeping us isolated. So it's almost like the planets mimicking, maybe it's our planet and us mimicking what was already in process with other planets in the sky. So we're ending that isolation. We are embracing change, moving forward, as it were. And during this time, that means we're also working through specific human issues like loneliness, isolation, leading a lot of people to feel lonely or cut off from the rest of the world, feeling different. That's a big one for some people, where you feel like somebody just kind of dropped you on this planet. Oh, my hand disappeared. That was kind of fun. Look, that's weird. um, it's like someone just like dropped you here on this planet and you're looking for your people. Well, that feeling different instead of feeling unique, right? This is a transmutation from that feeling odd or awkward or like you don't fit into being unique, valued, and in with your differences. And that's a big transmutation. And as well, we're transmuting the energy of loss, where we cannot go back to the way things were. And in some cases, we sort of mourn the things we've lost, including if you're someone who's lost a friend or family member over the last year to the pandemic, or having lost your momentum in your life. You thought you were cruising along and then wham, something happens that changes that trajectory. So all of us in some way may be working through these issues of loneliness, feeling different, or loss. And the opportunity is for us to transmute those things into the more positive expressions. And another way for us to look at this is that we are here to serve who we are becoming, not who we have been. So serving the emerging things about ourselves or about our world, rather than the way things have always been. So transmutation energies forces opposites to become more fluid, to become more willing to see how they are just the other side of the same coin. Distractions, distinctions, differences all sort of drop out while we're in this phase of Venus transmuting all of those more conflict, separation-oriented energies. And if you'll remember, Venus as a planet, she rules love. So what we're transmuting what we're using to transmute these things is the energy of love and trying to restore things back to harmony. And interestingly enough, time and timelessness are a theme while Venus is behind the sun, right? In a lot of different sci-fi movies, I'm thinking of Star Trek, the fourth movie of Star Trek, where they have to slingshot around the sun in order to go back in time so that they can bring a pair of humpback whales back to the Earth of the future, because they've been killed off. And of course, now there's this alien probe and it's going to blow up the Earth if the whales don't answer. So we've always had this sort of recognition about time, and something about going behind the sun changes our perception of time and timelessness. And, last Friday we were talking about time, right? It was in context of daylight savings time and how our changing of time messes up our rhythms and so forth here on the planet. But isn't it interesting that Venus, who was already moving behind the sun, she was already out of sight, was also bringing up that energy of timelessness for us. So at this point now, we are in new territory with the energy of Venus as she's now into the Aries point. She brings up this energy of change now. At the Aries point, it's society moving forward, sometimes in very bold ways, taking the risk to being courageous and bold enough to make the changes that we know we need to make, but we've been hesitant to make. So we've been sprinkled with all the ideas and the innovations and the inspirations, perhaps from her time with Gemini, and now Aries energy wants action. So we may see the tempo pick up of things that are changing in our outer world, and being more willing and open to moving forward, to letting go of these things from the past, letting go of the differences and so forth that we were talking about just a few minutes ago. So it's an interesting time we're in right now with Venus at a phase change and also a sign change, as she on Sunday had moved into Aries by transit, but also changed her star point where she'll spend quite a bit of time at the Aries star point. All right, questions about that, Asa, can get those questions to me. Let's take a quick look at the Pleiadian-Earth energies for the weekend. Starting today, we are at the energy of change. No surprise that I'm talking about that. Today's energy of 5 takes us into the energy of movement. So movement out of places where we've been stuck, movement forward perhaps, but you can also read that as catalyzing energy, sort of the stimulus to move or to make change. So that is paired with the earth energy today of evolving. Now, evolving energy in the Mayan calendar was Kaban. Kaban was a representation of earthquake, sort of the earth shaking things or the things that shake us up or awaken us, the things that cause us to take notice, right? To stand up and take notice and to make the changes that we need to make in order to evolve. So today's energy is about change in order to evolve, not just change for the heck of change, not just change because we're bored or because we're restless, but that even though there may be some restless energy in the mix, this is change that is meant to create a path forward for evolution. Tomorrow, Saturday, energy is then in the 6, and it is the energy of self-regulation. Self-regulation was Etznab in Mayan, and self-regulation or Etznab was a representation of the obsidian knife that could be sharpened and used to surgically remove, if you will, the parts of us that are no longer serving. And it is self-regulation in the Pleiadian calendar because it is our job. It's an inside job. We can't look to the outer world to be the support for our own growth and evolution. We have to look inward for that. So self-regulation, you and your ability to do what's necessary to greet change. Now, the energy of 6 is about being in the flow. It's about allowing the flow to lead us, take us wherever it needs to take us without the backpedaling, the no, I'm not going, and to just go with that flow. And if you meet an obstacle along the way, to just let it take you wherever, right? Maybe around it, over it, under it. Maybe it's a time to pause and just wait for the energy to shift again. In other words, tomorrow is a day to go with the flow. Maybe the flow is disrupted some way tomorrow. Now, with the full moon on Sunday, we enter into the 7 catalyzing energy. So the 7 energy is the halfway point in our spiral of consciousness. And remember that spiral began at one exploring, and that was just a week ago, last Friday. So exploring energy was having us take a wider lens, see the bigger picture, and how we all fit into that bigger picture, exploring territory, being adventurous in some ways. Now we've reached that halfway point, and now it's time for us to catalyze, to start the process of change, of alchemizing the new direction that we want to take based on the things that we've learned over these past 7 days. So, what have you learned in your explorations? What have you learned through the energies that came after that, including even up to today's evolving energy and tomorrow's self regulation? Sunday becomes the day to catalyze the change to move forward, and that happens at the full moon. So, interesting, right? The full moon, I always think of the full moon as bringing things into culmination, sort of that giant spotlight being able to be shown on both our inner and our outer worlds. So showing us how well we're doing as a soul and as a human. How well are we embodying the wholeness of who we are? And indeed, wholeness is one of the themes for the full moon. So let me show a graphic here. I think I can do this. If I can't, I may have to take a moment to make some changes. Oops, share. Oh, I got an idea. Hold. Where did my picture go? Just a moment. There we go. I closed out the graphic for the full moon. So now let me share my screen so you guys can see this. Here we go. March. Here's our March full moon. I called it the crazy eights because it's a lot of planets in the 8th degree. We have the full moon that is at 8 degrees of Libra, 8 degrees 51 minutes. So yeah, y'all, that's really almost to the 9th degree. But I like the fact that 8 still there. So 8 degrees of Libra and the sun at 8 degrees of Aries. And then if you go down further here, there's aspects because the sun and Venus and Chiron all come together at about 8 Aries. And then we have Uranus at 8 degrees of Taurus. And I hope you guys remember why it is I really love the number 8, right? Because it's this reflection energy. The 8 reflects the I in the you, right? The I and the we. So the full moon here is on a relationship axis between Libra and Aries, Aries being I am, Libra being we are. So we have this idea that relationships are a very important part of this full moon. When we look at the number 8, the degree of each of these bodies, it is us seeing ourselves connected heart to heart, right? Heart to heart, and also spirit to human, spirit to matter. And so that reflection is the thing that we're meant to see. We're meant to see the truth of ourselves in the reflection of our relationships. And we're meant to see the reflection of ourselves through our connection to source or God, whatever you want to cosmos. So it's a great number to have this full moon at, a lot of light being shined then on our relationships and creating a healthy balance between the I and the we. So let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger so we can look at the chart for a moment. Here we go. Here's the chart of the full moon. So the full moon, from an astronomical standpoint, is when the moon is in opposition to the sun. So you see it's 8:15, haha, and 8:19 or 8:15, not 51. I made a mistake here. So it really is 8 degrees. I love it. Okay, so we have the 8 degrees here with the sun and the moon. Wherever the moon is in the full moon is in conjunction with the earth. So the earth and the moon are in a conjunction during a full moon, and they are opposing, in this case, the sun, Chiron, and Venus, who are all right about the same degree, 8 degrees of Aries. Now, You can also see Uranus here in Taurus at 8 degrees. He's actually the one that's 8 degrees, 51 minutes, still within 8 degrees. And so all of these bodies, Sun, Chiron, Venus, Uranus, the Earth, and the Moon, are all connected through these 8 degrees in a relationship, right? So the relationship is an opposition between the Sun and Chiron, Venus, and Earth, Moon, and it is an inconjunct to the planet Uranus from the Moon, and it is a semi-sextile or a 30-degree relationship between the Sun, Chiron, Venus, and Uranus, and we'll talk a little more about what that means. But look at that chart and what stands out at you. What just jumps out when you look at that is this shape, right? This kite. And a kite is made up of planets that are in healthy relationships with one another, with one opposition that sort of is the tension between the two signs, between the Aries I am and the Libra we are. And so that tension is that opposition, and that's what a full moon is. It's the opposition, that having to find a balance between the emphasis that you place in your own life on yourself and the emphasis that you place in your life with your relationships. And to be healthy, you have to have the healthy self, right? You can't, it's that, whole saying about the stewardess telling you if a mask drops in the flight that you've got to put your own mask on first and then help those around you. Because to do it the other way would mean that you are taking away from your own vital energy and then not leaving you enough to help others, right? So the important thing to do is to have your cup full. When your cup is full, then you have the energy, the time, the wherewithal to help others, to serve in some way. So this full moon is reminding us that we have to have our own cup full, but then we have to be able to also share. So there's this balance that needs to come up in order to stabilize our essential self in relationships. And all of these other points. So right here we have Mars and the North Node in a conjunction, close enough, 2 degrees away. So Mars is catalyzing our destiny, right? We have that catalyzing energy on Sunday in the Pleiadian-Earth energy. We have a full moon with the Sun, Chiron, Venus, and Aries that catalyzes or creates forward momentum. And we also have the anchor here with the moon and the earth in our relationships. So those things, a healthy I and a healthy we, help us to be able to catalyze movement toward our destiny. And this isn't your personal destiny. This is our collective destiny, if you will, where humanity is meant to evolve. So there's on that side. Now, this forms the crossbar of the kite. So in a way, this is forming the ability for the kite to fly, right? For it to soar. Without the crossbar, it would just sort of flap and wouldn't probably catch the wind in as powerful a way in order to take it to heights. So when we have on the other side, planets like Saturn, it tells us that all of what we do next has to come from the start of a healthy foundation. So we have to have that foundational energy there first in order to get to where we want to go. Question from Christine, does that relate to a numerology life path number of 8? Well, the 8 in numerology, Christine, I mean, I'm sure there are many definitions. I've heard it called the God number. I've heard it called the number of humanity. It's the number of power and of abundance in numerology as well. But with the Pleiadian energy, we're looking at the 8 as a reflection of ourselves, where we're connected at the heart, right? Where the 8s cross over, where the 2 circles cross over, that infinity, that's our connection, right? Our stabilizing when we come heart to heart. But yeah, you could look at the numerology of it as well, because the numerology gives us the background of how that number works in the grander scheme of things. Okay, let me go back to this. Saturn here helping us to build a foundation for the future in Aquarius, our foundation for the future. And what is that? And I have a lot of ideas about what I think that is. I'm not going to bring those up here, but we are definitely moving into a new foundational energy from which humanity will serve one another, but also serve the earth in the future. So serving evolution, if you will. Now, also, what was the other thing I was going to say here? Oh, the Sun Venus Chiron conjunction. This is so interesting as well. Remember, the sun represents our ego self, right? Our personality. That Venus represents love and self-worth, how we feel about ourselves, our values. And then Chiron is the wound, right? The wounded healer. So remember that Chiron was born a half man and half horse. Remember, he was rejected by his mother because she was horrified that he wasn't all human. So she rejected him. So his wound brings up the part of ourselves that we reject, or where we felt rejected in some way. That wound can take on many different faces through whatever sign it's in. And partly here, his wound in Aries is the wound of not feeling connected to those around us. So the wound can be when we are expressing codependence, where we're so caught up in being all things to all people that we lose ourselves. On the other end is uber independence, where we become sort of like an isolated island away, where we only stand up for ourselves. We can't see that other people are just there waiting to give us something, or to help us, give us a hand up, a foot up. So the Chiron wound healing here is about bringing all of this together in interdependence. So we have transmuting the wound of isolation, or the wound of uber independence or codependence, into interdependence. And then from interdependence, this becomes the gift, right? The healing of the wound becomes the gift that we all have to be able to bring to the world. And this brings us into a path of wholeness, which is what this was all about to begin with. The whole thing about life is a path to wholeness, bringing us healing the us versus them, right? Really seeing how we are all interconnected, that relationships are our mirrors. So when we want to look outside of us and blame X, Y, Z for our problems, it's really a reflection of us and where we are out of alignment. So using our relationships as mirrors during this time. And duality is exposed here, right? The whole concept of duality is exposed. Where it is that we are most vulnerable is exposed. Bright light, sun, right? Sun shining down, connected with Chiron, with an ability for us to see our wound, to see where it is that we're most vulnerable and where we're exposed. And that exposure is on where we have to heal duality even within ourselves. So it's an interesting moon, to say the least. Let's take a look at some of the other things here. The theme of the moon here, specifically through Dane Rudhyar's book, The Astrological Mandala, is about the ability to see the divine, see and divine the symbols that life is showing us. So being able to tell what numbers are symbols, right? They're symbols of something. So that is a part of that experience that we're in. The sun is at a point that he calls the appreciation of artistry within our relationships, the appreciation to see how eloquent the people around you are in helping you to see what parts of yourself need healing, but what parts of yourself are already whole. Kind of fun, right? To look at your relationships and with those new eyes. So the reflection 8 energy here, these crazy 8s, is really about the whole idea of seeing me in you and seeing God in yourself, right? So seeing you in me in you, and seeing God within ourselves, and seeing ourselves in the reflection of God. And I use that term loosely, whatever you whatever word you use, whether it's source or God or cosmos, doesn't matter. The divine versus in us, and us in the divine. Okay, so also there is a human design theme for the full moon. The moon will be at the gate 18, perfection. And it brings us into the idea that perfection is in the moment, that things are if you can see the perfection, even if it doesn't look to your eyes as if things are perfect, like things could always get better, right? There's that idea. Things could always get better, but in this moment, the way it is perfect, right? As only it could be, right? So it's perfect. The sun at the gate 17 is in realignment energy, which we talked a lot about on Monday. Today, I'm going to go into the gate 18, and we're going to talk more about that. And then, of course, our closest aspects being Venus, Chiron, conjunct the sun at 8 Aries, but also Uranus at 8 Taurus. In the connection here might bring up some surprises. There's a theme underlying everything, perhaps of awakening, of initiation. Uranus initiates change and moves us out of the places where we have become trapped or encrusted, if you will, where our ruts are. And of course, he's in a sign that is the sign of getting stuck. I mean, Taurus energy of all of the signs can get caught up in a comfort zone, and can be very reticent to get out of that zone, right? They get caught in the rut and they're hesitant to get out of the rut. Like, after all, I'm comfortable, right? I'm doing fine here. So why should I make changes? Why should I do anything? Right? So Taurus energy tends to move when it gets uncomfortable. So that's something for us to look at. Where are things starting to get a little uncomfortable in your life? Where are those little discomfort points? Because they may be pointing you, awakening you, initiating you into the potential for change. And that could happen in all areas of your life. If this chart were a person, it would be happening in the career sector, because that planet Uranus is in the 10th house. So if you look at your own chart, you can look to where Uranus is. You can look to where the sun is. Where's Aries? Where's Libra in your chart? What axis is being lit up in your chart? Where is the need for balance and harmony in your own chart coming from? Because this full moon is shining that brighter light on that part of the chart for you. Okay. Now, any other questions or comments on that? Let's see if I can go back here. Christine, did that answer your question? Did anybody add up 3/14/2019 for me and tell me what it was from a numerological aspect? Christine did. It reduces to a 2. 2 is relationships, right? So relationships, a concept of duality. Oh my gosh, so interesting. All right. So let's see who else I'm seeing here. Ingrid, hello, I think is here. And anybody else? Oddly, J-Lo says, oddly, an aha moment. She's a Libra sun. Thank you so much. Always helping me with the aha moments. Thank you. You're welcome. Augustina says, I'm feeling so strongly all of this movement. I would love a card if possible. Well, let me see if I can get through the next do you want a personal card or collective card, Augustina? Let us know in the chat. I'm going to go on to the next piece so that maybe I'll have a couple of minutes time to be able to share that. Let me share my screen here real quickly, because the next part I want to talk about is what's happening with the spleen in our human design. So I told you that the moon and the earth were sitting at 8 degrees of Libra. Well, 8 degrees of Libra in human design puts it in the gate 18. The gate 18 sits on the spleen. And the spleen, as you know, is a center of survival, health, intuition, and time. Interesting concepts that we've already been talking about in relationship to all of these other planetary movements. And now we have the spleen center. Now, the spleen center also has another weirdness about it. It's that survival energy that we've obviously done well with. We've survived as a species on the planet. Those gates have morphed into false evidence appearing real. So fear as an acronym. And each of these gates then can trigger fear within us. Now, if you already have that gate defined in your chart, it just maybe puts a little more emphasis and light on it. But for those of you who do not have the gate 18 by birth, now it's in transit with the full moon sitting there. right? So it's putting a lot of spotlight on the energies of the gate 18, which is the fear of authority, not of outer authority necessarily, but the fear of your own authority. Like, I'm not perfect yet, right? Things aren't perfect yet. Now in quantum human design, the system that I'm learning from Karen Curry Parker, this is the gate of realignment. So I like that word better. I may have to change this graphic up, Asa. Maybe you can help me with that, to change maybe some of these words. But I think the fear of authority still fits here. If we look at this in the gene keys, we're looking at the shadow of judgment. We're looking at the gift of integrity, being true to oneself, being in one's own skin. And then also in the city, we're looking at perfection. So what we see is that there's perfection in the highest of the energies here. Now, let's look at what does perfection mean, right? In this context, it's about, in human design, waiting for the right timing to correct and align someone or yourself even. And that correction serves joy, right? You can't see it here, but the other gate at the opposite end of 18 is the gate 58, which is the gate of joy. And it's on the root center. Joy is a foundational energy for humans. It isn't an emotion. Joy does not sit in the solar plexus. It doesn't have anything to do with emotional energy. It's a foundation energy, which means that grounded within us all is this idea of joy, of being in joy. And to get to the perfection part of this is about waiting for the right timing to correct and align. Note this is very far away from the throat in your human design. So correction or sharing of your critique, if you will, comes with an invitation to do so, with an invitation to share. You don't just walk up to someone and say, I don't like the way you said that, so I want you to reword that. Right? That's not your job. Unless that person asked you for that, you're meant to stay in the quiet, just in knowing that if it's the right timing, that you would be invited in to share of your criticism or your critique, let's call it. In the integrity, so in the gift level, we understand that the purpose of realignment is to create more joy, not to be right. Right? This isn't about being right. This isn't about that at all. It's about how a pathway to the expression of more and more joy. More and more joy is what's being perfected here. It's not about whether you're right and I'm wrong, or I'm wrong and you're right kind of energies. In the lowest expression, judgment, this is where we're being critical without respect for the impact it might be having. And this works both ways, whether it is you being critical of someone else or of your own self, right? So it works with both the I and the we. So being critical without the respect for its impact, but also being more concerned about your rightness rather than determining whether what you have to say as a critic or as a critique has any real adds anything to the joy, or is it detracting from the joy, right? Sometimes it is incumbent upon us to keep our words to ourselves, because it's really not going to add to the joy for you to point that out to somebody. Right? So being quiet unless invited to share your critique. And this is also the Center for Instinct and Intuition. So this is instinctive reconnection and realignment with joy, right? And love. I threw that in there too, with joy and love, because I think joy is one of those energies of love. So the interesting thing is that from this week forward, for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, taking us into, I believe it is the first week in May, the Earth will transit around every one of these gates. So this is sort of the opposite point of the year from last year's late September, all of October, first week in November, where the sun was moving through each of these gates, really showing us the light of the fear. Now it's the Earth. Now the Earth is a completely different, she has a different mode of operation here. Her mode of operation is to bring it up so that you have to take care of this before you can get to the light of the sun. So if we looked at where the moon and the earth are sitting at the gate 15 or 18, sorry, we really need to take care of our need to perfect or to be right so that we can actually enter into the sun's light, which is at the gate 17, which was about anticipation of how it is that we can all work together to create more joy on the planet. No small order, that one, right? So questions about that, let me know, or let Asa know, and she will get that information to me. Augustina, I'm going back now because I want to see where's that screen? There we go. Augustina, maybe both. Haha, thank you. Really my choice. Okay. J-Lo, my Pluto is there. Sheesh, it sounds just like me. Well, but instead of beating yourself up or looking at this as a negative, what's positive about that? What's positive about the way that you show up in the world, about how you share your criticism, or how you and we don't have really good words about that. How about sharing your insight in how to create more joy, right? That's a positive thing. All right, so let's take a look at the card piles I have here under books that I just need to read still. I think today I'm going to bring up the 7 energies. And who else? Let's do dragons today. So the 7 energies, wrong screen. I need to go back to Zoom. There we go. Oh, you might not be able to see them unless Asa and I had this problem yesterday as I was trying to show her something. So the oracle of the 7 energies, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to change. Hold on. I think I can do this on the fly. Let's see here. Choose virtual background. None. There we go. Oh, interesting. Okay, so none. Here I am in my room. You thought I was out amongst the planets, but I was in my room all this time. Okay, so Augustina, this card is going to be for you, but you can also consider it for all of the collective. And this might be our card that we think of for the full moon and what it brings to us, okay? What it is that maybe we need to balance within ourselves. And the card is Willing Release. How apropos. Is that a 49, which is a 13, which is a 4? So Willing Release. Get this beautiful milkweed with dandelions, butterflies. Okay, let's see what this means. And it was upside down when I pulled it, so it was like this. And I'm not sure if in this deck that comes into play. I don't think it does. And it's card 49. So let's go back here. Willing Release. Now, remember, in this deck, everything is arranged in 7 energies. So the energies, that themes thematically that we're dealing with here is the energy 7, which is thought. So this is a mind thing, a thought process. All right. And here are the key concepts. Yielding to a divine plan, releasing attachment to form, especially if something isn't what you expected or wanted, leaving room for serendipity. Some days you have to let go of your struggle to find an answer and focus on other things for a while. This doesn't mean giving up altogether or losing anything. Remember that in our co-creative partnership with the divine, give and take is necessary. You do your part by setting your intentions and taking any necessary actions, but you must then surrender the form, the timing, and the how to your higher power. There is a divine plan for each of us. When acting on this faith, you may find that your intense desire for something translates into a feeling of attachment and entitlement. Right now, can you immerse yourself in this experience and allow the divine plan to unfold as it will on your behalf without interference? Can you be open to receiving what is yours, even if it is not packaged in the form you thought you wanted? Perhaps if you look deeper, you will see that you've received the perfect vibrational match to your most authentic wants and needs. You have put in the work, defined your desires and felt them deeply, and engaged your higher power. Now you must let go and see what transpires. This isn't always easy. Impatience erodes the foundations of your trust in the divine. Surrendering truly will serve your highest good. Knowing this truth in your heart, can that really be so difficult? Love it. Willing release. Perfect for this full moon, which is a time of culmination. It's release. It's revelation. So perfect. Now let's pull a dragon to help us through this moon. And I heard my phone buzz. Is that you, Asa? Let's see here. Question from JLo. Oh, question from Corey first. When you say look at our charts, does that mean look at our birth charts or a current transit chart? Either or, Corey, really. If you look at your birth chart, you're still going to see where Aries is. You're still going to see where the planet, where the Sun, Venus, Chiron conjunction is. But you're not going to see them in terms of the transiting planets. You're not going to see the symbols. You're just going to see where the energy is. If you use your transit chart, you're actually going to be able to see the symbols of all those planets that are in transit. So either way works. All right. And the other question was from JLo. Her daughter has her north node there in Capricorn, and she has Pluto in gate 18. Could she be triggered to helping her or vice versa? Well, so what you're saying is she has Pluto at the gate 18, and her Pluto and north node must be in a conjunction, right? So she already has a transformational path in this lifetime, and your daughter is less than 40. So my guess is she's still living out of the south node here, and the south node here is likely in the gate 17. So she's learning about when to share her ideas or her opinions in ways that are powerful and helpful and not harming, or she's learning about when, she's really learning this idea already from birth. So this isn't anything new, but this may, make some kind of aha for her where she sees something in a new light. So definitely. And if it's her south node there, then it's even more important for her to understand that this is an old energy. She has an old power structure in her previous lifetimes that she's transmuting in this lifetime. So what I mean by that is if I see Pluto in the south node or Mars in the south node close together ever, I often think of lifetimes that are maybe militaristic in some way, where there was a lot of discipline needed to do whatever the work was that the person was doing. So they bring that forward into this lifetime, this idea of things have to be a certain way, or being disciplined about certain things, or, creating conflict around certain things. So in this lifetime, she's transmuting that, but she's well off from her 40s where that transition will take place. So likely she's still trying to do things in an old way, trying to maybe apply discipline to things or lack of discipline to things. And it's not working for her. So she needs to be able to look at that in her life through the different events that happen so that she can move forward toward the north node. And of course, she's 17, 16, 18, something like that. So she's got a ways to go. She's still learning. I hope that answers your question. All right, so let's pull a dragon. Our dragons are sort of our symbols of power and catalyzing energy to move us forward. And today we get a deep blue dragon, keeps you safe by clearing your pathway. Trust that you are protected and walk on a path of light. Here we go. That's a beautiful deep blue dragon. I don't think we've had this one before. So let's see what the book says about this card, deep blue dragon. And this is a fifth dimensional dragon, page 60. All right, here we go. Deep blue dragons work with Archangel Michael, the angel of strength and protection. Dragons can delve into deep, dense matter in a way that angels cannot. They can clear and transmute lower frequencies up to 1 kilometer around those they work with. These frequencies may be our emotions and thoughts, or the emotions and thoughts of people in our vicinity. Many of us are sensitive and do not realize how much the vibrations of others impact on us. Every time we walk in a crowd, we are in a sea of mixed energies. And these deep blue dragons are master clearance experts. They blow away the foggy vibrations, and then Archangel Michael can more easily connect with us and place his deep blue cloak around us. Here's our guidance. This card is suggesting that you call on the deep blue dragons to protect you or your loved ones. Visualize a protecting army of deep blue dragons gliding in front of you whenever you walk or drive. Let them precede you into your home or office. Ask them to dive into the ground below your house to consume all lower energies. Ask them to keep an area of 1 kilometer around you totally clear. Relax and trust that this is happening. Because the deep blue dragons are transmuting the lower emotions of those in your vicinity, you are no longer moving through the dense energies of other people. Notice how much lighter and happier you feel. You can serve the planet by asking deep blue dragons to dive under your shopping malls, schools, big buildings, or anywhere you feel they are needed to consume dense vibrations. Very much appreciated. Deep blue dragons, or dragon. There we go. All right. One last check to see if there are other questions I missed. North Node is gate 58. So letting go of this perfection in order to move into more joy, right? Letting go of perfection, seeing everything as perfect in the moment to restoring more joy. So joy is what she's after in this lifetime, expressing joy. I think that's a worthy North Node. All right, everybody. That is it for me today. I will see you on Monday. Take care. Have a wonderful weekend and enjoy the full moon. Try to stay in your own space, understanding that your relationships are mirrors for you. Send out love, send out light. See you on Monday. Bye for now.